right. Good afternoon, everyone. Go ahead and call this meeting of the Board of Water Resources to order today, January 19th. It is my great pleasure to begin serving as chair of the board for the year. I'm Juliette Tennert, representing Salt Lake and Tooele. And it's such an honor, again, to serve as chair and really to serve it with my colleagues on the board. It's just a great pleasure. So thank you all for giving me this opportunity. Why don't we go ahead and start the meeting with some introductions. And so we'll just have our board introduce themselves in the areas that they serve.
River Basin.
My name is Kyle Stevens, and I represent the Weber River District, which is Weber, Davis, Morgan, and Summit counties.
I'm Wayne Anderson. I represent the Pearl River Basin, which is Wasatch, Utah, and Juab counties.
My name's Blaine Ibsen. I represent the Sevier River District.
Randy Crozier, represent the Duchesne, Uena, and Daggett counties.
Great, thank you. And I will note that we are all present today. We have two positions on the board that we are awaiting appointments by the governor for. So glad to have everyone here in person today, and it will be a great meeting. Director Hassenjäger, can you introduce the team that you have here in person and online?
Yes, thank you. With us today, we have Shalane DiBernardi, Marisa Egbert, Tom Cox, Ben Marett, Grant Doty, Heidi King, Stephen Gregerson. Shannon Clow is taking minutes. Thank you, Shannon. And behind the curtain, we have a full cohort of people, Paul Gedge, Carmen McDonald, and Matt Morgan running all of our AV stuff. And I think that's all of staff, unless I missed anyone.
All right. Okay, very good. Well, thank you to everyone for being here today and all of the work that you do to the benefit of the state. I will mention that we take public comment, and that was up until virtual public comment signups were up until noon today. I know that we have at least one public comment that came in, and what we'll do is we'll read that into the record with the director's report. Do we know of any other public comment that came in on any of the other agenda items for today?
No,
Okay.
there are no other.
Okay,
public
super.
comments.
Okay, well, let's get into the agenda, but before we do that, we should recognize Kyle Stevens for his work as chair over the past year. I've got really big shoes to fill, and I appreciate all of the leadership of our board that you've given us, Kyle, and also that you will continue to give to us. So glad to have you here with all of your expertise, and we appreciate your service. Executive Director Hassenjäger has a little something to present to you.
I just want to say thank you, Kyle, for your service last year to the board, and we have your gavel with your name and the date of the year of service engraved for you. So here you are.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It was a privilege for me to be able to serve the past year, and know that Juliette will do a great job for this coming year in taking care of the business of the board. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And how exciting that I didn't realize that when we accepted as chair, we actually got this very nice engraved gavel. So I feel like it's okay. Now I feel really good about accepting the position. I'm going to take it with me and use it at home, maybe.
Yeah, good luck with that. I was just going to say I was going to take it home and try it, but I don't think I'll have much success.
Yeah,
so
okay,
thanks.
you'll have to let me know how it goes. All right. Well, with that, why don't we go ahead and jump into the agenda. First, we have approval of the minutes. We talked a little bit about this in the briefing meeting, and everyone's had a chance to go over them. Is there anything that we need to note for the record at this point? All right, then I'd be looking for a motion for the approval of the minutes.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second to that
Second.
motion? All right, that motion has been Made and seconded by Kyle Stevens.
Actually, Wayne.
Wayne.
Oh, wait, sorry. I need
He
to
beat
look.
me to
I
the
need to
punch.
look down there. By Wayne Anderson.
You want
Thank-
me to turn my name tag around?
I feel like I might need to hand a gavel down to you that way. Is there any discussion to the motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, we'll move that the minutes are approved. Next on our agenda is a snow report. Troy Brosten is here. I think I saw you earlier. You want to come up to the, come up to the podium and share from NRCS what you've been seeing. We feel like observation, for those of us who just kind of casually observe this, we feel like we hopefully will hear some good things from you today, Troy. Excellent.
Oh, function F5 there.
Okay, so first of all, you're welcome. I like to take credit for all the good snowpack and all the bad season is Randy Julander. And I think it's rjulander at hotmail.com now. I'm sure to look him up. Snowpack this year is doing fantastic. So far, we are well in the blue. The picture here that you see, is that up? No, it's not up.
We actually see it at our
Do you see it?
desk.
Oh, they don't
Yes.
see it? Oh, that's too bad. Okay, so the picture you see there is of Alta, a snowtail site that we just recently installed this year. That little bump that you see between a tower and the rain gauge, that's the shelter. We put an 8-foot shelter in up there this year, and it wasn't because we were pessimistic about the snowpack. It was just we didn't have a 12-foot shelter or a 16-foot shelter because of supply chain issues. You might have heard of that. So we had some of that. We had a couple guys that went up there to Alta. It's just on the other side of it's Atwater Snowtail, which is up in Alta snow ski area. So we had a couple guys go up there, and they were checking out a plugged rain gauge. Now, that is the very top of the snowtail shelter. Now, in the shelter, we house all the electronics and transducers and the transmitter and the logger that records all data. So we had a guy, he went up there, and he's been digging down into it. That's Justin Byington. He just started with us about a year ago. He's one of our more enthusiastic employees. And so he finally got down to the top of the door and was able to get in and get some manometer measurements for us. So at that time, as of a couple days ago, it was 128 inches of snowpack up there. So it's phenomenal. The ski resorts are doing fantastic this year. So overall, across the state, first of all, we're looking at the water year precipitation to date. So that's cumulative precipitation from October 1 to present. The graph on the left there displays our current water year as of today, as of yesterday. And then the graph on the right is the same day a year ago. So from precipitation standpoint, the cumulative precip, we're doing much better than last year, but it's not noticeable so much in precipitation. Snowpack, as you see, we'll see, we're doing quite a bit better. But last year at this time, we were as low as 107%, and Tooele up to 130% in some of the other basins. And this year, we are ranging in over 100% in all the basins, up to 173 down in the southwest. So another way of looking at the precipitation, cumulative precipitation, is with the graph, and the solid black line there represents the current year, and the graph, the line just below that is last year's water cumulative precipitation. So really, for precipitation, again, not a huge difference so far in the year, but we have currently caught about 50% of our water for the year. And we're only at January 19th, so we're doing very well. But as you can see, last year at this time, and you all remember this, we had a very good December, and it looked really promising, and then the water tap just got shut off for almost like 2 months, and then we got a little bit more, and then the snowpack was over. So this year, we're doing fantastic. We are on average, about 109% of snowpack across the state. Whereas last year, we're doing much worse, mainly because the last couple of weeks, we've caught so much more than we did last year. Well, essentially, we didn't catch anything last year after January 3rd. And over the last 2 weeks of this year, we caught an additional 6 inches. So we were ranging from 145 to, 211% down in the south. Even though we are in a La Nina pattern, it does not seem to be affecting our state as getting less in the south, more in the north. If anything, the whole state is benefiting so far in this snowpack year. So we'll looking at the graph. What we see here is currently we are at 14.3 inches of SWE across the state. Last year we were only at 9 inches. So essentially we are at above the max, the peak snowpack that for average across for Utah. So going forward, presumably we'll catch more snow and we will have a well above average snowpack year, which we desperately need. So looking at last year, you can see how it flatlined there just after January, and we caught a little bit there in March, and then again we started to lose the snowpack after that. As of this year, within this last 2 weeks, we caught about 6 inches. So I wanted to compare our current year with a few of the good years that we've had since I started. I started the program in 2010, so in the summer of 2010, and that water year 2011 was absolutely huge. I was absolutely amazed. I got stuck on the snowmobile so many times. Randy would dig me out so many times with a smile on his face because he loves snowmobiling and he loves snow. After that year, we kind of had a lot of bad years. So 2011 was a fantastic year. Currently, we're doing better in 2011. And again, we're looking at 2017 was a well above average year, and we're still doing better than that at this time. And then more recently, 2019 was a pretty darn good year as well, and we're doing much better than that at this time. So I also wanted to look at some of the more years much further back, going back with the Snowtail network that started in 1979, and look at the high years from the 1980s. So 1982, we're doing better in 82. We're also doing better in 83. 84 is a really good year. We're in the running with 1984. And then 1997, again, that was a big year as well. So of those 4 really big years over the past, since 1980, we are beating 2 of the years, and we're in a running with two years after that we might beat them, we might not. So I wanted to look at currently what our water year is to date with the snowpack. And what you see here with that solid black line there of the SWE increasing, we've got really 3 events. The first event occurred in November. We got 2 solid inches of snow water equivalent there that we didn't get last year. So already in November, we're beating last year by quite a bit, and quite a bit of snowpack from previous years. And then we had this November, December, and again, this December was great. We just had storms coming through. They were lined up. They were just moving through. The frequency is what really makes a snowpack. If we can get a snowstorm 1 or 2 days a week, every week, you're going to have a greater than average snowpack year. So that's what happened in December. And last December was like that. But then, come January, we caught 1 inch last December, or last year we got 1 inch in January and flatlined. This year we got 6 more inches in January for the last 2 weeks. It was also this period of January, of those last 2 weeks of January, that California just got pounded, and they saw a lot of flooding and landslides, and they got just hammered with those storms. They hit them and then breezed through and hit us, and we want it. They want it too, but not in that intensity. So moving forward, looking at the soil moisture. Now, soil moisture really impacts how the water efficiency impacts the runoff and how efficient the water will melt and run off into the reservoirs. So currently, we are above normal for the soil moisture saturation. So ideally, what we want is a supersaturated soil going into winter, freezing that up, and then once it starts thawing, it's already saturated, and so the water runs off into the reservoirs. Currently, we're at about 52%. We're above average, and so we're not going to see so much of a defect or an impact of soil moisture that would cause the runoff to be less efficient. So that's a good thing that we're looking at, and hopefully this will improve our runoff for this year. Now, the sad point that we're really concerned about, and this has been accumulating over the last few years, has been our reservoir storage. We've been in a deficit for the last few years, and the snowpack from last year did not help any. And coming out of the snowpack last year and into the new water year, we lost a lot of reservoir storage. And so currently we're at 45% compared to 50% last year. And, you know, the 50% last year was lower than the year prior. So we've had a lot of years that have not been able to replenish our reservoirs. So that's why we really need to have a well above average snowpack to start replenishing those reservoirs. So when we look at the surface water supply index numbers, these numbers are derived from a combination of the current storage, reservoir storage in those basins, as well as the April through July forecast. So these numbers are based off the January 1st forecast. And the forecasts from January 1 are really pretty good, but again, last year at this time, they were also really pretty good, and then they just progressively got worse. Now, January 1st forecasts are notorious for not being very accurate because we got so many more months of snowpack to come that it's hard to predict months into advance. So take this with a grain of salt. So what we see here is the two really pop out are two basins of Provo and Lower Sevier, where the percentage is 7 and 16% respectively. And that is largely due to the low reservoir within those two basins. So even though we have a pretty decent forecast, those reservoir numbers are pulling those two basins down. And all the basins are reflecting the low reservoir conditions. So hopefully we continue to get a good snowpack and increased squeeze to fill those reservoirs, but we're going to need probably another year of average or above average and another year to really recoup the losses that we've been seeing in the reservoirs. So NOAA puts out these extended forecasts, and I always look at these on a daily basis, and it's a love-hate relationship. It's a 6 to 10 day outlook, and then they got an 8 to 14 day, and they change daily. I mean, you look at it in the morning, if you got a nice green spot above Utah, you look at it the next day, it's a brown spot. So they really move around. And I try not to look at them, but I always find myself looking at them. I get, yay! And then I'm like, oh, yay! So it's like it's an emotional roller coaster. It's terrible. So take this with a grain of salt, because this doesn't look all that good for Utah right now. And this is as of yesterday, but tomorrow it might look better. But currently, our extended forecast is looking like it's going to be colder than normal and dry. And again, even for 8 to 14 days, looking similar as well. But that will hopefully change. Again, what we really need to see is, it looks like we got a dry period coming up. Right now it's snowing. It looks like we got some weather coming in still in Sunday, so we've got some good weather patterns still working its way through Utah for the next few days. And then it might dry out for a bit. Hopefully we'll only get a dry period of a few days or a week, at most 2 weeks. But if we get a high pressure system comes in and sits on us, as you all know, that almost makes the death of the snowpack. And I hate high pressure. I used to not even think about high pressure, and now I'm like, high pressure. I hate high pressure systems. So then you track them, and they're terrible. So looking at the drought monitor, we have seen quite a significant improvement. So a lot of Utah, so this is as of January 17th, and you look there at California, they had exceptional drought, and now a lot of that's been wiped out in an extreme drought. Now they're just in severe drought. In Utah, we still have some places with extreme drought, but our severe exceptional drought portions have dropped. So October 1, at the beginning of the water year, you see California there, they were really hurting. When then they got all the storms and floods and landslides, and now they're no longer in drought-like period. We look at Utah, and it has shrunk significantly, but we still are very much in drought-like conditions. So as of January 19th, we're looking much better than we were in October. And for the most part, most of the western states are looking quite a bit better, except for that area in Montana. So, summary. As of January 1, our snowpack was at 56% across the state, and as of today, we're at 190%. Again, at 6 inches of SWE and the storms that came through in those last 2 weeks have really bumped it up. So we're almost at 200% across the state, and many of the basins are over 200. So it's fantastic. That's a good thing to be happy about. Soil saturation is at 52% compared to 46 last year, so we don't see any real issues with the soil moisture causing us problems with runoff efficiency. Reservoirs, that's where we're really concerned about, and our bad spot where we're at 45% of capacity compared to 50% last year. So we're hoping to see a good snowpack to help replenish those reservoirs. SWE numbers ranging from 7 to 69%. And again, that is a reflection of our current reservoir numbers, where we need to see more greater return on our runoffs to help replenish those reservoirs. 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day looks cold and dry, but again, that prediction and that forecast is really not very accurate, and hopefully we'll see improvement on that within even the next few days. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Troy. Any questions, comments?
Question, Madam Chair, for Troy. When you're looking at SWE versus total precip, how do you evaluate that? I mean, I'm always looking at the total precip number, and I'm more depressed than I ought to be when I look at that number.
Well, what you really got to take into account is that precip, it starts October 1. And so generally we have, a month or two of precip that's accumulating, and then the snowpack doesn't really start until November or late November. And so the general precip has a jump, but then you've got 2 months that you need to account for that's in that accumulation period, so it never looks as good. Like on these graphs we saw, precip last year didn't look much worse than this year, but it was really due to how it's calculated out from October 1 to September 30th. Whereas, and then suddenly we're getting all this snowpack, and we're seeing the snowpack numbers look so much better. That answer your question, sort of?
Yeah, because I'm looking at 2022 numbers versus 2023 in the Bear River Basin. I think, well, gee, we're not any better this year than we were a year ago on total precip, or very little better.
Well, my recommendation is to stop looking at those numbers. Look at the SWE numbers. You'll feel better. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I was looking at the graphs today. I was like, especially the graph. I was like, wow, there's only like 3-inch difference here from current conditions to last year at this time. But we've got so much more snowpack that's stored up in those mountains right now than last year at this time. And so that's going to really provide a much greater volume of water come runoff season. So
Yeah, and then another comment is, I appreciate, I guess, how much redundancy you have in your snowtail sites. Looking in the Bear River Basin, we've gained a lot of snowtails where Tony Grove Lake was the only thing we used to look at, and there
Yeah.
are several near it that we can compare and see if one's just completely out of the ballpark and shouldn't be respected or
Yeah, absolutely.
not.
Yeah, that's been very helpful. The more we get in, the more we can assess certain sites. And, you know, it's sometimes they'll be plugging away and we think they're reporting correctly, but if we have a nearby snowtail that's saying otherwise, then we like to go in and ground truth what's going on there and make sure it's accurate. But, yeah, the Bear's pretty well populated with snowtails, and they'll keep putting them in. People keep asking us to.
And then finally, my final comment is, I appreciate your comment on Montana, so. I know where you come from. And that big red dot up there doesn't look very good.
No, it doesn't. That's eastern Montana, though, so I'm from west. But yeah, it's looking a little dry up there.
If I might help you out on the answer to the questions, just tell them, ask me September 30th, and I can tell you how it was.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's great forecasting.
Eliminates lots of explanation.
So things are looking good. Again, it's the frequency of the storms. If they keep coming in, we will have a good snowpack. But if you have a 2-month period where you're not getting much, it kind of slams the lid on a possibility. So keep your fingers crossed.
Okay. All right, we will. All right, any other questions for Troy? Troy, thanks so much for all you do, and you always give a great presentation, so thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
All right. Let's jump into projects. First on our list is a feasibility report, RM041. That's Liberty Irrigation Association. That is in Kyle Stevens' area, and Grant is going to, or maybe Marisa is going to, nope. Grant is doing the reporting on that.
And while Marisa's getting that set up, we do have a couple online with us. I believe David Hansen and Brian Dieter are online.
Great, thank you. And I think I also saw, no, I didn't. Great. That's for the next item.
Neil Bailey, I think, is also online from Liberty Irrigation
Oh, great.
Association.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beatty. That's great.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. Wayne, thanks for your service, and Juliet, welcome. Congrats on your new position.
Thank you.
Bringing us the snow.
Yeah,
Whatever
that's
you're doing,
right.
it's working.
There's something that's correlated. I don't know.
So keep doing it. It's cool.
There you go. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Great. So Liberty Irrigation Association is located in Liberty, just northwest of Eden in Weber County. The purpose of their project is to purchase and install 231 secondary meters. In August 2022, the applicant received ARPA grant funding for this project, but did not request loan funds at that time. They're now requesting loan funding for a portion of the cost sharing. Staff recommends the board authorize 25.5% of the project cost, up to $204,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $14,800. That is the staff's report.
All right, thank you. So before we actually go to the applicants, Kyle, this is in your area. Is there anything that you wanted to add, or?
No, not at this point. We'll just go ahead with the responses from the sponsors.
All right, thank you. So like we said, we have Mr. Bailey, Mr. Hansen, and Mr. Dieter online. If you want to address the board, you can do so now.
I don't think there's anything for us to add.
Okay, great, thank you, and thanks for being here, appreciate that. Are there any questions of the board on this particular project? I know we talked a little bit about it in the briefing meeting. Great, Okay, well, if not, I think we'd be looking for a motion then.
Madam Chair, I'll be prepared to make that motion, and that is the motion that the board authorize 25.5% of the project cost up to $204,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $14,800.
Great.
Second.
All right, seconded by, motion made by Kyle Stevens, seconded by Randy Crozier. Any discussion to the motion? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, we'll rule that that motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Grant. Thanks to the sponsors. All right. And next on our agenda, we've got some committal of funds. We've got 3 loans and then 1 grant change. So let's go into the loans first. The first one is RM 004. That's the City of Cedar Hills. It's in Wayne Anderson's area. Marisa, brief us on this one.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. Sorry, that sounds kind of cool to say. The project for Cedar Hills City, they did receive authorization and committal of funds in December for the grant fund, the ARPA grant funds for the secondary meters. They had not been sure if they'd needed to do the loan or not, so they did decide to go ahead with the loan. So that's what we're looking at today. So the purpose of the project is to purchase and install approximately 2,070 meters on their pressurized secondary system. Let me put there. Staff recommends the board commit 28.6% of the project, up to $655,000, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $51,000, and that includes reserves.
All right. Thank you, Marisa. I'll note that we have Mr. Kevin Anderson online from the Public Works Department, Mr. Charles Lowe, the finance director, and then Mr. Japheth McGee from Zions Bank representing this project. So just note that. But before we go to them, if they have any comment, Wayne, do you have anything that you'd like to add before we go to the sponsors?
No, it's pretty clear cut.
Great. Thank you very much. Cedar Hills, would you like to address the board?
No, thanks.
All right, thanks, you guys. Well, thanks for being there. In case we have any questions, and then to that point, are there any questions of the board for Marisa or Cedar Hills representatives? Great. All right, well, I'd be looking for a motion then.
Okay, Madam Chairman, I move that the board commit 28.6% of the project cost up to $655,000, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $51,000, includes reserves.
All right, so we've got a motion by Wayne Anderson. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, seconded by Kyle Stevens. Any discussion to the motion? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, I'll rule that that motion passes. Thank you. So next, we'll be looking at a committal of funds for RM 011, that's Layton City. This is in Kyle's area. Ben, provide the information on this one.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. The Layton City has come before the board. They have a ARPA grant secondary metering project. They received authorization for the project back in August and have proceeded to make significant progress on the requirements towards the bond, and they are ready for committal of funds. That being said, staff recommends the board commit 25.5% of the project cost, up to $1,821,000, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $141,000, including reserves. And that is staff's report.
All right, thanks, Ben. Kyle, this one is in your area. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't have any further information.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we have Stacy Majewski online representing Layton City. Do you have any comment that you'd like to provide to the board?
We don't have anything extra to add. We just wanted to say thank you for your consideration and all the time and effort on these applications.
Great, thank you. Does the board have any questions for Ben or Layton City? All right, seeing none, probably look for a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'll make that motion, and the motion is that the board commit 25.5% of the project cost up to $1,821,000, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $141,000, including reserves. And that's the motion.
All right, thank you. So we've got the motion on the table from Kyle Stevens. Is there a second? All right, Blaine Ibsen has seconded that. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll rule that that motion is passed. Thank you. Next, we have RM 038 at Heber City. This is in Wayne's area again. Tom will brief us.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Heber City has a project to install meters. They have about 2,945 meters to install. Back in August, the board authorized and committed $5 million in grant money, which was the maximum they could do. And they authorized just under $2 million in loan funds. So they've made significant progress on their requirements, so they're ready to commit the loan funds today. So staff recommends the board commit 25.6% of the project cost up to $1,997,000, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $155,000, and that includes reserves. That's staff's report.
All right, thank you, Tom. Wayne, this one's in your area. Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, Madam Chairman, I don't have any more to add.
All right, thank you. These are all pretty straightforward, these loans. Looks like we have Russell Funk and Marcus Keller, Russell Funk, the city engineer, and then Russell Keller, represented Zions Bank online. Do you gentlemen have anything you'd like to address the board with?
No, just want to say thank you for your consideration, and I think we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Great, we appreciate that. So does the board have any questions for the representatives or for Tom? All right. So I think with that, and gentlemen, thank you for being there, because if you weren't here, we probably would have questions. So with that, we'd be looking for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chairman, I move that the board commit 25.6% of the project cost up to $1,997,000, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $155,000, includes reserves.
All right.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So moved by Wayne Anderson, seconded by Randy Crozier. Is there any discussion to the motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you. All right. So next moving on from the loans, we're going to talk grants. We've got Salem City RM 077 next, and I think we've got a couple of folks. Yeah, so representatives of Salem City, we've got Bruce Ward?
Yep.
Bruce Gray, city manager, engineer. Christensen, Mayor Christensen, thanks so much for being here today. And then Greg Thomas, thank you.
And when you do speak, it'll go green when you push it.
All right. So let's go ahead and hear, Marisa, if you can give us the details, and then
Sure.
we'll turn time over to Wayne if he needs any, and then gentlemen, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is for Salem City Corporation. And I just want to start by saying that Salem City has been working with the board for a decade, at least. 14 or 15 years, actually trying to figure out secondary meters before secondary meters got really figured out well. So we've worked with them quite a bit. They've been very proactive in this, to the point that a year and a half ago, they did come to us for a loan to install secondary meters. In this situation, they did send an application to install remaining 500 meters The original work was for 1,900 meters. Costs have gone up. They could only do about 1,400. So they applied for the ARPA grants now for the 500 meters. We then realized that some of the meters that they had purchased and or installed before fell within that time window that is in the, I don't know the Utah code on that one, House Bill 242, falls within that time frame where they'd already installed the meters or purchased the meters and that they could be reimbursed. So we were able to adjust their application from, I think it was about 1.6 million. And now, as you see, it's up to about 2.6 million. So there will be the 500 meters that they're requesting plus some reimbursement for those that fell inside that window that they'd already installed. So they are coming to the board just for ARPA grant money, and so they're looking at $2.59 million. Did I say that right? 2.59. So staff recommends the board authorize and commit 64.8% of the project cost up to $2,590,000 as a secondary meter grant. And that's staff's report.
Thank you, Marisa. Wayne, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I just trying to figure out how much it's worth to them for my motion.
Well, let's go ahead and see. Gentlemen, do you have anything you'd like to share with the board?
I'm sorry. We appreciate your consideration. I'm Mayor Christensen. I'm 5 years into this. Well, I'm 5 years on my second term. Yeah. We've been working on this ever since. Yeah. The obstacles have been, we get 30 meters a month from China or wherever we're getting them from, and they've just been slow to get to us. The labor costs have went way up. People don't even want to kind of bid the job, so we're like, ask, so we've had to be really creative in getting it done and getting the project done, but we've been very proactive in getting our metering done, so that's where we're at.
Great, thank you. Thank you for being so proactive and kind of with us along the whole haul, so thank you very much. Are there any questions of the board for Marisa or the representatives? Yeah, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I have a question for the sponsors. So you just mentioned that with the supply chain coming out of China and all that the meters have been tough to get. How are your meters that you've been getting holding up? What kind of warranty do you get? How are they standing up, the ones which you have been getting, and what are you anticipating on getting in the future down the road?
The meters that we've been getting are a synthesized pearl meter. They're they have no moving parts in them. They're kind of a magnetic meter. I think the warranty, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the warranty is a 20-year, and we've only had, the ones that we've had in, we've only had them in for just over a year and a half, and to date, no problem. So I don't have any other information beyond that. They're kind of considered the best meter out there that's available, so we're hoping for the best.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments of the board? All right, well, with that, we'd be looking for a motion.
Okay, Mayor, it is my privilege and pleasure to move that the board authorize and commit 64.8% of the project cost up to $2,590,000 as a secondary meter grant.
All right.
Second to the motion.
All right. Moved by Wayne Anderson, and we've got a second from Charles Holmgren. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, we'll rule that motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Next up, we have a special item. That's RE 461, the Newton Water Users Association. It's a request for authorization and then would be a committal of funds. Cache County, so Charles is in your area. Ben is going to provide some information.
Good afternoon again, Madam Chair and members of the board. So the Newton Water Users Association has a proposed project that they'd like to bring before the board. Do we have Camilla and Steve with us online? Just want to make sure they're here.
Yeah, this is Stephen Wood.
Okay.
Also with us is Steve Griffin, Jed Woodward, and Val J. Rigby with the Newton Water Users Company. They're all board members.
Great, thank you.
Awesome, thanks, guys. Here before you, you can see the map of the proposed project. The Newton Water Users Association provides agricultural water to approximately 4,000 acres of ground. They also provide secondary water to approximately 300 connections in and around Newton, Utah, and Cache Valley. In 2014, they received about $2.8 million from the Board of Water Resources to replace nearly 8.5 miles of canal with HDPE pipe. They are also working with the board on a separate project to install secondary water meters in Newton Town. And those are their previous projects, so they have 2 of them with the board currently. So right now they are proposing a project. You can see the longest line on the right side of your map there. That is approximately 11,500 feet of asbestos concrete pipe that they'd like to replace with plastic irrigation pipe or PVC. On the left side of the map, there are 2 smaller sections that they're going to install to close a couple of loops, and then also they'll install some isolation valves and pressure reducing valves. The benefits this will provide to their system is that they're going to conserve a little bit of water. They're also able to, as I mentioned earlier this morning, they'll be able to isolate parts of the system to complete repairs without depressurizing the whole system. They are hoping to begin construction in spring of 2023, in March actually, so that's in 2 months. And then the project is expected to decrease operation and maintenance expenses. That's the primary driver behind the project. The total is estimated to be $1,267,000. They do have 2 grants, one from the Bureau of Reclamation, which is a Water Smart grant for $75,000. They have a grant from UDAF, the Water Optimization Grant, for $465,000. And that being said, staff recommends that the board authorize and commit 48.8% of the project cost, up to $618,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $24,700. And that is staff's report.
All right, thank you so much for that report. I'll just say who's online or sponsor with the sponsorship of this project one more time to make sure we've got the names right. We've got Val Rigby and Jed Woodward from Newton Waters Users Association, Steve Wood from Sunrise Engineering. I don't have who else?
There's Steve
and we
Griffin.
do have, Steve Griffith, who's a board member as well with the Newton Waters Users Association. So thank you all so much for joining us. Really quickly, before we turn some time over to you, Charles, do you have anything you'd like to add to Ben's presentation?
Madam Chairwoman, I do not have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To the sponsors, would you like to provide any comment to the board?
One question that we did have and a potential request beyond our gratitude for allowing to even entertain the project is, originally when we filed for the BOR Water Smart grant, that was about 1.5 years ago, some of the costs were significantly lower. And so as we've been moving forward with this project, we had to get through some hurdles with land ownership and some other working with the residents to make sure we're taking care of them properly. And making sure that we're pulling back and making sure that the agricultural is the primary and the sole source of the project as required. But one thing that we were wondering and concerned about is there a potential that we could request an addition to 5 years to be a 30-year loan to help reduce that impact of the duration of the project as it has increased significantly? If that is a possibility. If not, we understand and we are grateful for what is provided.
Was that Steve Wood?
Yes, that was Steve Wood.
Is that request in compliance with what Steve Griffin wished to do? I spoke with him on the phone earlier, and we had come to the conclusion that we were going to stay with 25 years, and there would not be a request.
Oh.
Well, after me and Steve talked, I was thinking that maybe that would be a good option to help reduce the cost of the project, if that was at all possible.
I think we can talk about it a little bit. It's kind of hard to do it on the fly, just to consider it on the fly, but I think we could talk that through a little bit. Ben, do you have numbers that would be available for us to consider if?
Well, with no interest, it's relatively easy to recalculate
Yeah.
that. It's
Okay.
straightforward division.
Let's open this up for questions from the board. Does the board have any questions for the sponsors or for Ben?
Madam Chairwoman, I just, it would have been appreciated had you made this request a little earlier than right at the spur of the moment. Makes it difficult for us, but go ahead with your request. And Ben's working on it, I think.
I apologize for that. We had one of our board members was out of the country and just got back in. We just didn't want to make without any of that, but we apologize for that. We understand that was not the best timing. I apologize for that, board.
Director Hassenjäger.
So some quick calculations by Shalane DiBernardi. It would bring payments, so for the board authorize and commit the project up to $618,000, and the project be purchased at 0% interest over 30 years. The annual repayments would be approximately $20,600.
Go ahead.
This is Kyle. Does the request for the additional 5 years fall within the guidelines of what's recommended for that, or does that require special consideration to extend, to go from 25 to 30 years?
It's my understanding that it's the staff guidelines are to remain within 25 years. However, the Board of Water Resources is at their discretion to do as they wish.
Well, it's kind of at the will of the board on this one. I'll just say, I mean, for me, it's not, I mean, and I would be a tie vote if there needed to be one. It's not a huge amount of money, I understand, but it's tricky to be, considering on the fly and then potentially setting precedent, but we've done it before, so that's my 2 cents. But just opinion of the board, and Charles, I don't know, probably follow your leadership on this. Yeah, there you go.
Thanks.
Do you like that? Consider your leadership on this.
Well, considering how tough it is to live in Newton, I guess I would try to support the 30-year plan. But we'll see if I get a second to my motion.
All right. So is that your motion? Then?
Madam Chairwoman, I will make a motion that the board authorize and commit 48.8% of the project cost up to $618,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 30 years with annual payments of approximately $20,600.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right. We've got a second by Kyle Stevens.
double
So
second.
we could at least have a discussion. Any discussion to the motion? I'll let, no discussion? Okay.
I can, Madam Chairwoman,
Yeah.
I can support them. I just
Yeah.
think it's a little unfair to us to
Yeah.
get surprised like this.
Yeah, it's tricky. Well, let's go ahead and vote it. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and rule that the motion is passed, but just for future applicants, and we'll just remind the staff, and Ben, I know that you did reach out, so thank you for doing that, but anything you can do so we have a little bit of notice on these things is really important, especially as we get, to the point where some of these funds are more and more scarce, but this one we feel good about, so thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
And again, we apologize for that short notice. That was, like Charles indicated, not very appropriate. So we apologize for that. And
We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you all. All right. Next on our agenda, we have, there's an information item. There's a new application from Davis and Weber County's Canal Company I think we just note that, right? We don't hear a report on that. Okay, excellent. And then also, I just would like to also welcome to the meeting, is it Lawrence Sugars? Is here in person, so welcome, Lawrence. And then also online, we have Jamie Haddock. Jamie, who are you representing? All right.
Hi, I'm with Liberty Irrigation.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you so much, Jamie. So Jamie Hadlock, and these tiny, tiny letters, I apologize for that, representing Liberty Irrigation is also in attendance. Let's move on to our next item. Josh, you're going to give us an update on the transparent water billing. Very excited about this. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Marisa, am I gonna? Well, that loads. I have 7 slides to share with you and are in my progress update. And feel free to interrupt me or ask questions at any point in time. The big news is with the applications that we have in our office that we've used up all the allocated funding. So that's exciting news for us.
Come in here, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Thank you. All right, so this first slide's a refresher of the Transparent Water Billing Program. It's grants to the Division of Water Resources for education and outreach. It's helped customers to understand their water use and their potential to conserve or reduce their water use. It's a collaboration between water providers, Division of Water Resources, software service providers, and one of the important elements of the pilot programs, the water billing grants, is that we report on how effective the tactics are at reducing water use. The nuts and bolts of our progress report would be 6 more applications have been received. Mount Pleasant City has a grant for $43,567. Richfield City is for $44,054. Roy Water Conservancy District is approved for $75,000. Ephraim City is for $62,740, and Linden City is almost a final approval for $81,823. We also have another application from Washington Water Conservancy District that has the potential to use all the remaining funds, or nearly all the remaining funds. There could be about $5,000 outstanding. So within these applications that we have approved within our office or in the approval process, we have 2 water conservancy districts, 1 canal company, around 15 cities, and 3 service providers. Through our approval process, staff meet with each of these entities prior to them getting funding. At those meetings, we discuss time commitments, reporting the findings of their tactics and their methods, and also we set them up for success with invoicing us so we can reimburse them with less snags. Everyone we work with is engaged. There's many different skill sets, but we all want to work together and have a positive impact and reduce water use in the state. There is a team atmosphere, and that is valued by all partners. So to get this money spent, I think 2 words are kind of fitting for all entities involved, and they are flexible and adaptable. So from the Division of Water Resources standpoint, we were able to approve all the applications that we received, and and that took a little bit of flexibility in us and making sure that we're following the rules that this money was appropriated with and still listening to the applicants that were applying. The providers, they have to be flexible and adaptable and meet with the city's needs. There's different needs for each city within the different states, and there's also different levels of technology that each of the cities have. So for the providers to know their cities and get to know the technology that they have available is really important to get their tools tailored to them. Each platform of those 3 service providers has a baseline of useful tools, and they can hit the ground running for that, and they also have the ability to use their software engineering skills to develop tools on the fly. And then the last one I think is important is to have an element of listening to understand when you're getting things developed and meeting with folks for success. When you have people that either have started or work on a software development company, and you have people that run public utilities or city managers, you have no shortage of great ideas and great minds. And it's really important to listen to understand and solve the problems that are, not make assumptions. And that's one of the neat things about this program is we look at the data and can use that to guide us, and it takes that assumption element out of it as best we can. So just a few lessons learned as we've been going through this for a while. Onboarding takes time. So when you have a city that has data information and they might have a contractor that they use to get their data information, they get it sent back to them, it's not as easy as just saying we want the data. You have to ask people to get it. You get it back on their timeline of how they get you back the data, and all of that has a human element to it. And the data integration and getting kind of what we call onboarded or getting up and running so the data is readable is doing the heavy lifting, and it takes a lot of effort to get to that point. So we also, within the approval process, not only do people have to get approved through the staff for the state and then get approved for our team, our leadership team, they also oftentimes have to get approved by their city councils or by their funding sources prior to getting to us. So when we initially meet, there can be a lot of excitement, and then when you actually go through, oh, we were talking about this much money, it might put them in a different category, and it can extend the timeline by months. An exciting part of this is when you do get that data integrated and you can get it into the formats that these service providers use, it's amazing how they can analyze it and they can look at it and they can see themes, or they can say, this is something you really want to work on here, or maybe you have some high water users that aren't residential water users, and you can contact them individually rather than through like email or group type messaging. The analytics expertise that goes with the software providers is incredible. They build out their programs, they know how to run them, and then within each of these individual cities, if the public utilities directors, the city managers, the finance officers that are partners on the program, if they have questions or if they have ideas, they'll give guidance about what that would take, and they'll actually try and develop those tools and those metrics to move forward and to try different things. Again, a lot of the success of this is based on analyzing that data and using that to make choices and not thinking you already know how you're going to save water or how water is being wasted in your area. So the path moving forward is that we want to have all of the contracts ready for irrigation season, and that's our goal. And we're all motivated to do that. It looks good for the state to have every program up and running. It looks good for the service providers to have everything up and running, and it's what these cities needs to have a positive impact on their service areas and reduce their water use. Some of the key components of the pilot projects that we can assess moving forward would be high usage. And for example, you take your high users and you sort them into the top 10%, top 15%, and then you concentrate on reaching them to reduce their water use. Another pilot project is they want to reduce their peak day demand. So they're really targeting how their water is used in those hottest months in late July. With every component, or with every one of these service providers, they do leak detection. And leak alerts are a little bit tricky in that the technology that you have has a big impact on how effective you can be in doing leak detection. If you have a 1 month delay in your water use data, it's not as easy to be effective. But when you crunch the numbers and go back 3 years with your water use data, guess what seems to pop out? If water's running 24/7, and then they can start to contact those because they're scrutinizing that data. There's other comparison tools, whether it's comparisons to ET for efficient watering, comparisons to efficient lot sizes or similar lot sizes, or to just your neighbors in general, proximity. And then another pilot project we have is just measuring how much engagement they can get through their different methods of getting in touch and doing outreach with people and seeing their response rate. So as we move forward, we want to be innovative. A lot of the meetings that we have are actually pretty fun and they're creative, and we want to keep those ideas going and do those. And then, especially from the Division of Water Resources end, is we want to be intentional with how we're tracking things. And when we have our meetings and we have our ideas, part of the success of that is that's a great idea, and then how do we track it? How are we going to report it back in the future? And that's one of the huge assets of these pilot programs is there might be, in my opinion, there's a lack of that component in a lot of the water use data that's out there, is measuring what is actually working from a engagement standpoint with your customers. We do have one, or as far as running the numbers, Grand Water and Sewer Service Agency, so in Moab and Spanish Valley, they have compiled their historic data well enough, and they've been up and running with their pilot program well enough to estimate that they have a 12% water reduction in that service area. And that's a huge credit to Dana Van Horn in that area. And when they received the funding, I think Dana shifted course and put her staff's time and her times toward this to get it up and running. And then their provider is Yapify, and they jumped in as soon as they had that data and started doing analytics. So if all of the other pilots are in that neighborhood of 12%, that'd be fantastic. But the next board report will be less on funding, less on how the finances go out, and more on measuring water use reductions. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, feel free.
Yeah, what a great report. Thanks, Josh. This is all just really exciting stuff. Any questions or comments from? Just excited to see it continue to move, and thanks for all the work you're doing, and some of the stuff that you've mentioned. It's going to be great to just see how much farther it goes. So thank you.
Thank you all for pre-approving these funds.
Yeah.
In hindsight, it really was it was an efficient way to get out these funds. And we started off a little bit slower than we wanted, but we have a full head of steam now, and we have more interest in these programs than ever. So thank you.
Excellent. All right. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks. You. All right. Director Hassenjaeger, your report is next on our agenda.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So first up, you did mention that we are working to get a couple of our board members filled, but I also wanted to recognize Wayne Anderson. He let us know that he wants to do some other things, so he finished his first term, is gonna resign from the board. So we're looking to also get his chair replaced. But just want to thank him for his service and really appreciate last 4 years, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Candace.
Yes. So we did have a public comment that we received online, and it was noted to go along with my director's report. And so I'm happy to read that in, but also we have the person here who made the public comment, so I didn't know if he had wanted any public comment or just read in the online comment.
I've been asking this, I just recently got.
Yeah, come up to the microphone, that's great.
No, he still needs picked up online.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. This is Lawrence Sugars.
Hi, I'm
Great.
Lawrence Sugars.
Thank you.
I'm an old retired guy, and I love it. I've been starting to ask questions about water. And my question is, it's like I have a house, I have a budget. I get X amount of money, I have to spend X amount of money. So that was my question. With water, and I've asked a lot of people, but only in your group especially, they've been very helpful.
Great.
How much do we use? You know, I don't care where it goes. I don't care line item. I just want to know, how much do we use? That was it.
Great. Thank you, Lawrence.
I got to add one more thing. I do own land in southern Utah, and the water down there, it's precious. You can't have land if you don't have water. And our rates have gone up, honestly, so what? You know, if you don't have water, your land is worthless. And it's because they're tapping into the aquifer. And so they're lowering the table. So it's kind of like, well, how much water do we really have? And how much do we really use? Thank you.
Great question, and one that we actually think a lot about at Water Resources. In 2021, we did complete a state water resources plan that is available online. So we do have a water budget for the state, and we have a summary of that in that plan. So we're happy to send you a link. Generally, our total inflow to the state is about so this is in chapter 3 of that plan, about 61 million acre feet. And we use approximately 3 million acre feet if you consider agriculture and M&I. So a lot of it goes back into the natural system, gets evaporated, runs off into lakes and streams. Plants use it, so there is still a lot of water in the state, even though we're one of the driest states in the nation, but only so much runs off. So that's generally, but happy to point you to more resources of where you can find that information there. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you for your comment, and thanks Director Hassenjager and to the team for just working to make the information available and, you know, and available, but then also like consumable. So we appreciate all the work that you do on that.
Thank you. And then for the rest of my director's report, just have a few items. As you all know, we have started the legislative session, and the first day of the legislature was on Tuesday. And so we are following a lot of bills. You did hear a good summary in our briefing meeting, but just kind of from a high level, we're tracking about 23 water bills right now. In the governor's budget that was released in December, we did have a significant amount of recommended funds to go toward water. Obviously, the governor does not set the budget and he does not appropriate it, but he does have his kind of recommendations of where he would like the money to go, and approximately almost $300 million to go to whether it's dam safety upgrades, water conservation, cloud seeding, trying to keep track of all these different ones, agricultural optimization, aqueduct seismic resiliency upgrades, salinity management in Great Salt Lake. So a lot of different things that he kind of put into his budget. So we know from the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget that there is a significant amount of one-time funds available, less on the ongoing. So we are hopeful that we will get additional funds to go to water and water projects and water conservation. So yeah, excited about that and working a lot with the legislature through this process, and really grateful for Joel Williams, our legislative liaison and deputy director of the division, for all the work he's doing right now. Another really exciting thing that happened last month, we had, thanks to one of our amazing staff members, Jake Sarago, and a number of stakeholders put in an application to our Bureau of Reclamation basin study for the Great Salt Lake. We found out on December 22nd that they approved us to get that, which was really exciting. So this is something that they are funding approximately just over $3 million toward this effort. So it's a good investment. We're also combining it with the state appropriation from last legislative session of $5 million to do an integrated water assessment. So we're merging those two efforts together. We're going to call it a Great Salt Lake Integrated Basin Plan, and look forward to that. It did hire Jacobs to help us develop the work plan that will be completed by November, and that also includes a significant stakeholder outreach process, so looking forward to that getting going. The other update I had for you was generally just on water banking. You guys have been involved in this through the legislation that was passed in 2020, and also the board approved the first water bank, the Carbon Canal company that came before the board and created a contract water bank. So the water banking project continues. So we did have $400,000 appropriated from the state, and then we matched that with the Bureau of Reclamation water marketing strategy grant of $400,000 that we are working, and the project manager is continuing to work on. So they are working to complete the 3 pilot project areas, and once those are completed, they will work on really the public outreach side, drafting the report, and those type of things. So there's a lot of things that we have learned going through this process. It's not quite over yet. And one of the big ones is stakeholder engagement is really important. In the Price area where the Carbon Canal Company contract water bank was approved, then that happened last January, so a year. After that was approved, they went through a change application with the Division of Water Rights, and they felt like they had done all the noticing, done everything, and then they found out that they had 80 protests on the change application, which is a significant number of protests on change applications. So they worked through I guess there was a form letter. Most of them were a form letter that went out. So they worked through those comments with the protestants and really got to a place where the state engineer ended up approving the change application, but it can't be overstated how important that stakeholder engagement and outreach is as one is creating water banks. There was also an effort in the Snyderville Basin area to develop a statutory bank, and there was a lot of excitement and interested parties. That being said, they found that it was a pretty significant lift, a pretty heavy lift to get a statutory water bank up and going. So they ended up deciding that they were going to use other mechanisms to have a water marketing. So this is part of the Bureau grant. We always talked about it as regarding water banking, but in the Bureau of Reclamation, they really talk about different water marketing strategies. There are lots of different ways. It doesn't have to be a bank. It could be a lease pool, a lot of those different types of things. So they're looking to streamline water leases through the new in-stream flow statute that was passed last year. We were able to use some of the funds that were available to install telemetry, because that's a really important part, whether of any water marketing strategy, whether water banking or leasing, is being able to shepherd that water and having the correct and sufficient telemetry information in. So the other bank was in Cache Valley, and this one really had a pretty strong start, but then the parties found that they could really just do a more simple water leasing contract rather than going through an official water banking process, just because it was only through a couple of entities. And so they successfully had a water marketing strategy developed, but it wasn't a water bank. So We still think it's a success, but, it'll be interesting to kind of follow that. There's also, the project management team has had numerous other discussions from different areas of the state interested in water marketing or water banking. And there's lots of promising aspects. They are still working to get all of the forms available for kind of the templates available for those that may want to come up with a statutory bank. They did that with the contract bank with Carbon Canal, so we have all of those templates available, but are working to get those forms available and kind of templates for a statutory water bank. So overall, I think the project is going well. I think there's been a lot of learning experience. If you remember, the Water Banking Act does have a sunset date of 2030. So depending on how things go, there have been a lot of additional options put on the books after, like the in-stream flow lease. So it may change whether, people find the necessity to have a water bank. Carbon Canal Company, I know, is looking to use their current water bank as part of the System Conservation Pilot Project that the Upper Colorado River Commission is spinning up. Those applications are due February 1st, so that's another kind of option that they may use their water bank as well. So that's just a summary on the water bank and some of the legislative details. I will be presenting next Monday at the Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Environment Appropriations Committee. That is such a long name. Next Monday, so looking forward to that and all the good work that's going on. So that's my director's report.
Thank you so much for that. A lot going on. So I know you're really busy and just appreciate all the work that you're doing. Any questions for Director Hasenjager? All right. Well, I think that everyone's kind of got their mind on, well, it's not snowing anymore, but maybe getting out of here for safe travels. I'll just go ahead and say thank you so much for everyone's support. I think it's been a good meeting, easing into this role. Our last meeting with Wayne, so we'll miss you, but we know that we know we'll stay connected, and I'm sure we'll see you here and there.
I won't completely get rid of water out of
Great.
my veins.
Okay,
so.
excellent. Okay, we're glad to hear it.
But thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. All right, well, with that, I think we'd be looking for a final motion. Perhaps Wayne wants to make that final motion.
I move we adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, no discussion. We'll just go ahead and adjourn. All right, thanks everyone. Safe travels.